Officer Rowling, you can turn your video on and unmute yourself.
Okay, we're now live on YouTube. And for the record, this is July 25th, 2022. This is the 8:30 calendar for preliminary hearings. My name is Brad Gardner. I'm going to be the judge presiding over this hearing today in the state of Georgia versus Jamari Shannon. Mr. Shannon is charged in warrant number 2022 CW 52311 with committing the offense of entering an automobile. He's charged in warrant number 2022 CW 52312. I'm going to put you on mute, Officer Rowland. I'm getting some wind noise. Okay, thank you. He's charged in warrant number 2022 CW 52312 with committing the offense of criminal damage to property in the second degree. He's charged in warrant number 2022 CW 52313 with committing the offense of theft by taking. He's charged in warrant number 2022 CW 52314 with committing the offense of aggravated assault. And finally, he's charged in warrant number 2022 CW 52315 with committing the offense of terroristic threats. Mr. Shannon is present here in court today. He's represented by attorney Javaric Rogers. The state is present here today. It's being represented by attorney Cheryl Freeman. Ms. Freeman, would you please swear in your witness and present your case?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, can you unmute Officer Rowling? Thank you, Officer Rowling. Thank you. Would you raise your hand? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony about to provide in the case of state of Georgia versus Jamari Shannon will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Please tell us your name and how you're employed.
Detective Darnell Rowland with the Clayton County Police Department, CID Division, Criminal Investigation.
Detective, how long have you worked with the Clayton County Police Department?
For 11 years.
Sir, were you working with the Clayton County Police Department on May 9th of 2022?
That's correct.
On that day, did you have occasion to work on an investigation involving a victim by the name of Billy Thompson?
Yes, yes.
As part of your investigation, did you speak to Mr. Thompson about his allegations?
I did.
And what did Mr. Thompson state that happened?
Give me 1 second. I was trying to. Pull up that information. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Detective Rowland, this is Judge Gardner. You haven't reviewed this?
I was out of the office, but no, I did not review it right away. I was out of the office.
Detective Rollins, do you think that may make a problem if you're being cross-examined?
I never got a time on when the court was taking place. I just wasn't clear on the time. I assumed the court was over with.
Well, you're the last case. Believe me, I've been sitting here since 7:30 at my desk. I'm
I
happy
never-
for this to be over with. So it kind of irritates me a little bit to sit here at 3 something in the afternoon for you to have to review your file in order to answer a basic question as to what the alleged defendant that you're here to testify about did.
Again, yeah, I understand. And again, I apologize, but I wasn't aware of what time the court was. I was prepared this morning.
Did you know the client? Did you
I
know
did.
the defendant?
I do know the defendant.
Okay, you could have looked this up, sir. Come on now. The time that hold on 1 second, and I'm sorry, because again, I've been sitting here for 7 hours, and we're now where you're like, hey, give me a second, let me look at this. The court started at 8:30 in the morning, and now we're at 3:15, and you're like, well, I didn't know. Let me look at this.
I had zero correspondence about this. I had no time frame, no nothing. I wasn't notified of anything except this morning. I called. I tried to find out what time. I wasn't notified about it.
So let's say it was 8:30 this morning. Are you telling me that you would have been better prepared at 8:30 this morning?
100%. I was sitting at my desk at 7 this morning.
So you would have been better prepared at 8:30, but you're at least prepared at 3:15.
I've been here since 7 this morning. I was at my desk. All my files, all my things was in place. Yes, I would have been equally, if not more, prepared.
I'm sorry, Miss Freeman. I'm ready to get this day over with so I can see.
I understand, Judge.
Orders. So are you now prepared to answer Miss Freeman's question about what Mr. Shannon allegedly did on this date?
I'm pulling it up again. 1 second. All right.
Yeah, I would. At this point, I would object. The witness has shown that he's unable to testify from memory or knowledge of anything that we're talking about discussing at this point. So I would object to him being allowed to sit back and read some sort of document, whatever that document may be, that we don't know what it is.
Your objection is noted and it's overruled at this point, but I'm paying attention.
Detective Rowling, have you, as we've been sitting here, have you been able to review your report, or you're still trying to pull it up?
No, I got it. Mr. Thompson did complete a police statement form. He suggested how he knew the defendant and how he came into contact with the defendant. Mr. Thompson worked at the I think it's some type of rooming house facility. The defendant was a resident of the rooming house facility.
I'm going to object here because it's either non-responsive or the question called for a narrative. If this answer is responsive, then the question called for a narrative. So in any event, I'm objecting on either basis.
I sustain that objection. Ms. Freeman, would you ask the question again for Detective Rowling?
Yes, Detective Rowling, what did Mr. Billy Thompson allege that Mr. Shannon did?
Entered his vehicle without his legal authority or permission or knowledge.
Was Mr. Thompson in the vehicle at the time?
Mr. Thompson was not in the vehicle. He was several feet away from his vehicle.
Was he able to see Mr. Shannon enter his vehicle?
He was able to see and positively identify the defendant.
Were there any witnesses to Mr. Shannon entering this vehicle?
The only witness was the victim, Mr. Thompson.
Was there any video surveillance of Mr. Shannon entering the vehicle?
I attempted to obtain the video from the facility. However, the video did not cover that specific area of where the vehicle was parked at.
Was the vehicle parked in a parking lot to this, I believe you said some kind of rooming home or group home?
That is correct.
Were you able to determine how Mr. Shannon made entry into the vehicle?
It was never determined whether it was unlocked or locked. I take that back. I believe that was the shattered glass. I'm sorry about that. That was the shattered glass on the driver's side.
Were you able to determine, I guess, if there was any type of tool or something else that was used to shatter the window?
As my recollection, no, I don't recall what type of tool was used.
Was Mr. Thompson able to give you an estimate for the damage to his vehicle?
Yes, he gave me an estimate, and I just do not recall the exact estimate of what it called for.
Did it exceed $500?
Yes, it did.
Detective, were you there on the actual scene to see the damage to the car?
No, this was verified through the original officer's report.
When you say the regional officer's report, you mean I'm sorry?
I apologize. The officer that responded to the scene.
Were there photos taken of the damaged car?
That officer did not take photos of it.
Was anything taken out of the car?
Yes, that was a weapon taken. I forgot how he described it, but it had a specific kit to it, to modify it a little bit. But the entire weapon and the kit itself was taken.
Did this weapon belong to Mr. Thompson?
Yes, it did.
Did Mr. Shannon have permission to take that weapon?
Mr. Shannon did not have permission to take the weapon.
During your investigation, did you learn whether or not Mr. Shannon used that weapon?
He did point that weapon in the direction of the victim once he was confronted.
What did Mr. Thompson tell you that happened between he and Mr. Shannon when Mr. Shannon pointed that gun at him?
Not to exact words, but once confronted, he stated something to the effect of "get back" as he raised the weapon towards him.
Was Mr. Thompson injured in any way?
He was not injured.
Was Mr. Shannon still on the scene when officers arrived?
No, he was not. I'm sorry, Mr. Shannon? Or
Yes,
Thompson?
Mr. Shannon, I'm sorry.
I do not recall, but I believe so. I assume he would have had to be.
Because we're recording the hearing, I don't want you to make any assumptions. And so just.
I don't recall.
Okay. Do you know if any officers or even yourself were able to interview Mr. Shannon about the allegations?
I was not able to interview Mr. Shannon. I can't speak on any other. I can't speak on behalf of the officer.
I know you said that you didn't have time to review all your report, but as part of your CID file, did you get any statements from Mr. Shannon that were taken by other officers?
No, Mr. Shannon, at my request, came in and completed a statement form.
Was Mr. Shannon read his Miranda warnings prior to making that statement?
I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson. I apologize. Mr. Thompson came in and provided a written statement. I did not speak with Mr. Shannon at all.
Okay. Was the weapon ever recovered?
No, it has not.
Did all of this take place in Clayton County?
Yes, it did.
And I can't recall, but what kind of vehicle was it that Mr. Thompson had?
It was a pickup truck. I don't know the specific make and model.
Was Mr. Shannon familiar with, I'm sorry, was Mr. Thompson familiar with Mr. Shannon?
Yes.
And just so we're clear, the window that was broken, Detective, was this a passenger side window or just tell what window was it that was broken?
I believe it was the driver's side window. I can tell you in a second.
Yeah, I'm gonna object. He already answered it. He said he believes it was a driver's side window. Like, I'm not sure what we're waiting on right now. So the question has been answered.
Well, I think the detective said, I believe it was that, but let me check. Which seems to me that he was unsure if it actually was a driver's side window before he wanted to commit to that answer.
Yeah, but Your Honor, the detective is a grown man. He can say if he does not know or if he can't recall. He said he believes it was a driver's side window.
I'm gonna allow him to clear it up. I'm gonna overrule the objection.
Thank you, Judge.
Appears to be the driver's side.
That's all I have. Thank you, Judge.
Mr. Rogers.
Officer, are you the lead officer on this case?
Yes.
And you've had an opportunity to review the other officers' reports and everything?
I had before, yes.
And as far as you know, what time of day was this?
It's appeared to have taken place Um, at approximately 11 p.m.
And the area, well, let me ask, did you ever go to that location at any point?
I did not.
So you couldn't comment personally on what the lighting was like in the area?
No, I could not.
And I know we talked about Mr. Thompson. Are there any other witnesses that law enforcement has spoken with?
There was one that worked there. He, if you want her name, I can tell you to.
Yeah, what's that witness's name?
I'll spell it. First name is Kiera. Last name is Carso. Carso.
And is there anything that she's saying that she saw that's relevant?
She is the I guess the overseer or the manager of the room and house. She is also familiar with the defendant. As far as the incident at hand, she did not provide any type of written statements or anything. Her information was limited.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you said there's no surveillance video or anything like that that captured the incident. Is that correct?
Present, but not able to capture that side of where the incident took place.
And just so we're clear, so you're saying the incident is not shown on any video, to your knowledge?
That was, yes, that's my understanding.
And as far as the statements, the conversations that you had with Mr. Thompson or that other officers had with Mr. Thompson, to your knowledge, are all of those recorded?
I don't know.
The time you spoke with Mr. that recorders are just written?
The time that I spoke with Mr. Thompson?
Right, you said he came in to make a statement, correct?
Yes, he came in to provide me with a written statement of the accounts of what happened.
Right, and I'm asking, that meeting, was it recorded?
No, it was just a written statement about what happened in his own writing.
And at this point, to your knowledge, is there any kind of physical evidence as far as fingerprints, DNA, anything that's been collected from the scene?
No. To my knowledge, no CSI investigators were called to the scene after the incident.
And how many suspects were involved in the incident?
That was one additional person with the defendant, but he was not identified or recognized by the victim.
And Mr. Thompson, does he give a description of the other person?
He gave a very brief description. Give me a second, I can pull it up. The defendant at the time was wearing a white T-shirt with jeans. The other unknown had blue T-shirt with jeans.
And do you know how far away Mr. Thompson is from the people that he's interacting with?
As he described to me, approximately 20 feet away.
And so when Mr. Thompson does not see the actual break-in occur, correct?
No, he's alerted by his car alarm.
And so when he comes outside to the area, what is he saying that he sees?
He notices his car alarm is going off. He runs over to his vehicle. As he's running towards his vehicle, the two suspects are walking away, and that's when he yells to confront them.
And do you ever have a discussion with him about exactly who does what, as far as who's holding a weapon, who's talking?
He did say that the defendant is the one that had his gun and the one that raised his gun towards his direction once confronted.
And at this point, when Mr. Thompson is out there, it's just him and the two suspects?
That's correct, yes.
And at any point after the incident, is Mr. Thompson ever presented with any kind of either an in-person lineup or a photo array or anything?
I believe that is correct. 1 second. There is a photo. I got to be honest. I don't believe. I think the photo was provided to me by the facility. I can confirm in just a second.
And also, while you're in there, if you can find out, do you know exactly who provided the photo?
I'm sorry. Yes, I heard you. 1 second. It's in the RMS and it just went down.
So does that mean right now you don't know?
As of right now, I cannot confirm. I'm trying to bring it back up.
Mr. Rogers, do you have access to this information?
I do have access to it.
No, I said Mr. Rogers.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I think I have that information at the moment. No, sir.
You said you do not?
No, at the moment, no, I haven't. This is the first I'm hearing about this part.
Okay.
Because I don't have it. I don't have a police report. So
I was going to say, to the extent that Detective Rollins is relying heavily on these documents, I'm going to require him to, within 5 days, turn those documents over to the state and to the defense.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
No further, well, I just want to verify, you haven't interviewed any suspects in this regarding this incident?
I did not.
All right, no further questions at this time.
Any follow-up, Ms. Freeman?
Your Honor, the seat rests.
May Detective Rollins be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Detective Rollins, sir, you are free to go. Thank you for appearing here. You can stay if you so desire. Mr. Rogers, is it your intent to present any evidence here today?
Just argument, Your Honor.
Okay, and I'm assuming, Ms. Freeman, you're going to waive opening?
Yes, Judge.
Let me hear your argument, Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, I'll start with, I would say, probably the most glaring one from a legal standpoint, the terroristic threats charge. I just want to double check before I get too deep down the short note. But the terroristic threats charge, I haven't heard anything that amounted to a threat. Closest thing I heard to it was a, I guess, an alleged command. And on top of that, there's no corroboration off it. There's no one else saying that they heard the threat or that it happened or anything like that. So I'll be asking for a dismissal of the terroristic threats charge. As it relates to aggravated assault charge, I would say also that it's unclear exactly when one says raises the gun. I'm not exactly sure what that means. It's not, if I was going to say that someone pointed a gun or aimed at me, I would say pointed or aimed. I'm not sure really what that means. It's kind of vague. And this is a court of law, and we're not just guess at what that means. I don't think that the state has met its burden regarding aggravated assault. As it relates to the criminal damage, there was no basis offered for the number. There's just a number pulled out of thin air just to make it a felony charge. There's no basis as to having spoken to any kind of repair shop, see what it was going to cost to buy a new window, or anything like that. It was not even really a testimony about how old this vehicle is. It could be like a 1980s vehicle that you could just go and grab something from pull apart and put one in there. It's not, it's not been established from any kind of objective basis that there's any support for a criminal damage in the second degree charge. I'll concede it's enough for criminal trespass, but not for criminal damage at this point. All we have is a lay witness with no real expertise offered or any objective basis provided for the estimate. With that being said, John, I would submit as it relates to the entering auto and theft by safety and ask the court to dismiss on the remainder.
Ms. Freeman?
Thank you, Judge. Regarding I'll start with the aggravated assault. Judge, there was testimony that Mr. Thompson indicated that the defendant, Mr. Shannon, pointed the handgun at him. He pointed at him and yelled words, "Get back." I believe that's what Detective Rollins stated. Certainly, I believe that that would place him in the fear. I think that is sufficient for the aggravated assault. The terrorist threat, there was no testimony that anyone was present to hear any threats. He did certainly commit a crime of violence. He pointed the handgun at him to terrorize him. Is charged as a misdemeanor terrorist threat. Mr. Rogers is correct. There was no testimony that there was any witnesses to hear the threat. The criminal damaging judge, Detective Rollins, did state that even though he could not recall the exact amount, but he did state that Mr. Thompson did say the estimated damage exceeded $500. So we were asking that all of these charges are bound over to Superior Court.
Okay, I'm going to dismiss the terroristic threats or acts charge because I didn't hear testimony as to a threat. I'm going to bind over the entering an auto, criminal damage, the property in the second degree. I understand Mr. Rogers' argument, but the testimony at this stage is sufficient to say that it was more than $500. And that's something that may have to be revisited in the future as it relates to proof. Theft by taking, there was sufficient evidence to bind this charge over to the Superior Court. And aggravated assault, there is sufficient evidence to bind that charge over. So all but the terroristic threats or acts, I'm going to bind everything else over to the Superior Court of Clayton County. And I find it was sufficient that the alleged victim identified Mr. Shannon as being one of the perpetrators, and whether that stands true later at trial, I don't know. So with that being said, Mr. Shannon can go back. Detective Rollins can be excused. And is there anything else, Mr. Rogers, that you have here today?
No, sir. I think that will conclude my business.
Okay. And from my understanding, this is going to conclude today's calendar, except for the orders that I need to sign.
Yes,
Okay.
Judge.
Well, thank you all, and I'll see you all on